Okay, so for your homework, I asked you to choose a famous scientist to write about. Who can talk to me about a person they wrote about? Han, thank you very much.
I wrote about Thomas Edison.
So what did Edison do? Let's try that. What did he do?
Like he make the lighting like better and longer.
Okay, and how did he do that?
He fixed it from the old one because uh, there are a group of people like explore the lighting, but it was really um, short and it take a lot of electric. So Thomas Edison fixed it to make that longer and not take much energy.
Okay, cool. Good job. Okay, thank you, Hun. Lily, who did you write about? You wrote about Alexander Graham Bell. What's he famous for?
Telephone?
Yeah, he's famous for inventing the telephone. Okay, and what type of scientist was he?
Biologist.
Biologist. Yeah. So he's a biologist who invented the telephone. That sounds fun. Kimmy, who did you write about?
I wrote about Blaise Pascal.
Blaise Pascal. Okay, and what type of scientist was Blaise Pascal?
He is an inventor.
He's an inventor. Okay, and what type of science did he study?
He studied math.
Maths, yes, okay. So if anyone ever asks you, what sciences do you study? You can say maths. Maths is most definitely a science, the science of numbers. Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're going to move on to something new. We're going to have a look at ecosystems, environments, habitats, some plant adaptations, and how they all kind of work together. Now, let me share my screen with you. It's easier. So, to start off with, just getting your guys' understanding, I guess. When I say the word ecosystem, you can tell me what is an ecosystem? Trixie, what do you think an ecosystem is?
I think an ecosystem is an environment.
Yeah, okay. It's very close to an environment. I'm going to try explain this to you by taking this word and trying to break this word down for you, okay? So, when you have a word like ecosystem, it's basically two words, okay? So you have eco and system. So the system is like a way to do things or how things work. And then eco generally means nature. Okay, so they are pretty much the two steps that are involved in this. So you have nature and the way something works. So it's the way something works in nature. If I was to give you an explanation of it, just to help you, get a full definition about exactly what an ecosystem is. An ecosystem is a biological community. The animals and flowers interact with the physical environment. So it's kind of like an environment to a degree, like you're right, Trixie, but difference is it's how we interact with the environment, how plants and animals live within that environment. An environment is everything that can affect things within an ecosystem, but an ecosystem can live within an environment. Okay, there's your difference. It's very small, very slight, but that's it. So, who can tell me ecosystem? Who can name an ecosystem for me? Yes, Hacker.
A forest.
Forest. Okay. Yes, a forest is like a habitat, though. Okay, so let's try to be a little bit more specific. Okay, a little bit more specific. An example of an ecosystem would be something like this, okay? That's why I chose this picture. The Great Barrier Reef, okay? So here you see shark eat fish, right? Shark eats all the fish, but the fish are there beforehand, and the fish are actually eating the fish too. They're all part of the same ecosystem. And as you said, the nutrients from that fish are going to fall down, and they're actually going to give nutrients to the seabed as well. So a coral reef is an example of an ecosystem. It's a living, breathing thing. If you're talking about a forest, as you mentioned, Hacker, what I would be encouraged to say is not necessarily just the forest in general. Okay, forest is the habitat. Think about like a dead tree. Like inside that dead tree, what lives inside that dead tree? lots of animals. Lots of birds will come to that dead tree to eat the insects that live inside that animal. So that dead tree would serve as a place for the ecosystem to actually be. And that's what I want you to get and understand. So there are multiple ecosystems and they are in multiple places. A cave can have its own ecosystem. You can also have jungle, rainforest, they can have their own ecosystems as well. Savanna, flatland, grasslands, once again, you can have numerous ecosystems existing here. All of these places are driven or impacted by the environment around them. If you were to take, for example, the rainforest. Now remember, a rainforest is anything that can affect life in the rainforest. Things in an environment that you need to know are temperature, sunlight, how cold something is, the nutrients, the water level. All of these things are part of the environment, okay? If you take a rainforest, for example, what do you think the temperature is going to be like in a rainforest? Kimmy, what do you think the temperature will be like in a rainforest? Do you think it's just going to be hot or cold?
Hot.
It's going to be hot, right? Okay. What do we think about the amount of sunlight? Cherry, do you think there's going to be a lot of sunlight or do you think there's going to be a little bit of sunlight? Lots or little?
Maybe a lot or
Maybe a lot. Or maybe a little. Well done. No, it's just, it can be both, okay? Lambi, what do you think plants and animals need to do to survive in a rainforest?
They need water and not water.
Okay, they need water. Do you think there's lots of water in a rainforest? Let's try Lily.
yeah.
Yeah, it's called a rainforest, right? There's generally lots of water. The reason I asked the question is because I want you all to start thinking about how the physical environment, everything around it, the temperature, the wind, the sunlight, how that affects animals and how that affects ecosystems with those animals as well. Same here if you're talking about grassland too. So in these grasslands, you have wide open places. You've got lots of sunlight. Animals will always look for shade, okay? They're always going to look for water. In a place where there's lots of sunlight, there's not going to be as much water. All of these factors are going to push animals to certain places and to go to certain places in order to survive. They've all changed. They behave differently because they need to survive as well. And this is what we're going to look at over the next coming weeks or so. So the whole point is that once we understand the environment and the impact and what different parts of the environment can have on an ecosystem, it becomes easier to understand why animals look and behave the way they do, especially within an ecosystem. I've said it already, but what is an environment? Who can tell me what an environment is? Winter, what's an environment?
An environment is where living thing lives.
That's a habitat. Habitat is slightly different than an environment. An environment is an area or a place where you have certain physical factors which are the same. For example, a desert, okay? A desert environment is somewhere where there is not a lot of rain, it's very hot, and the floor is covered in sand. So there are three things which say this is a desert environment, okay? The difference between a habitat and an environment is that we say a habitat is a place where animals live, but an environment is something that can affect things within inside it. So the animal lives in a habitat, but an environment is a place in which can be affected by outside factors such as wind and sun. Okay. Now, how do you think animals affect their environment? I've given you an answer for one of them. How do you think humans affect our environment? Pumpkin.
I think that people throw trash on the water.
Yeah, they throw trash in the water, okay? So we're affecting our environment by making it dirty. Han, what else do we do?
They throw the trash everywhere and they use a lot of plastic water bottle and throw it in the right place. So many animals got died.
Yeah, they can die. Okay, so humans, as an example, we pollute our environment, right? We throw trash away, we mess up the earth, all right? But in the case of other animals, right? I don't see lions, you know, picking up Snickers bars or chocolate bars, or I don't see lions going down to the lake and throwing the lake or throwing rubbish in the lake, do you? So if you're to use that as an example, okay, how do you think other animals affect their environment? What do you think they do? Here's a good example. Elephants are big, okay, but elephants also live in jungles. How do you think an elephant affects its environment? Let's try Winter, what do you think? What is it? An elephant's big, right? What happens if an elephant walks into a tree? What's going to happen to the tree?
The tree could die because the elephant eats the bark.
Yeah, okay. Elephant eats the bark. Elephant knocks the tree down. Elephant pulls the tree up, right? So these are all things an elephant can do. Now, let's take that example. Let's say an elephant knocks down a tree and eats a tree. What happens after the elephant eats that tree? Yeah, Billy, where'd you go? I saw your hand. What do you think is going to happen next?
An elephant only eats the bark of the tree.
Yeah, okay. Elephant only eats the bark of the tree. Once it's eaten the bark of the tree, the elephant goes for a poop, right? What happens with the elephant? What happens with the elephant's poop? Who can tell me? Trixie.
I think it's going to decompose.
Yeah, it's going to decompose into the soil, which is going to add nutrients to the soil, which is going to help more plants grow, okay? So the whole point of what I'm trying to get you to realize here is that all animals have some effect on their environment and their ecosystem. If it's an elephant, okay, the elephant can do two things. It can do physical damage because it's going to be big, it's going to push trees out the way, it needs to eat lots. But it's also going to add to it as well. It's like, okay, elephant's going to eat this. An elephant's going to help the ground become more fertile to help more trees grow. In doing that, it's adding and it's affecting its environment and its ecosystem. They don't have animals don't have the same effect as humans do in terms of pollution, but they do affect it in different ways, and they all have different roles to play in it. So if you were to think about a food chain, okay, very, very simple understanding of what a food chain is. You start with the producer and you come full circle. Okay, so if you were to think about water, water helps grass to grow. Water is eaten by deer. Deer are eaten by lion, and dung beetles use lion feces, lion poop, in order to build their homes and also to feed on it as well. So then straight away you have all these different parts affecting and being a part of an overall ecosystem in their food chain. So not to get confused, you have words like habitat, environment, ecosystem. They're all very, very close. They're all very similar. The way to know it is a habitat is a place where an animal lives. An environment is anything that can affect anything inside it. So it can affect the ecosystem. An ecosystem is a community, a biological community living inside an environment. So they're all slightly different. Do not get confused. What I need you to understand is that they all have a role to play. The ecosystem has a role in its habitat and its environment. Can anyone give me an example of another food chain, please? Okay, Trixie.
I think that there's grass, then the grasshopper eats it, then the bird eats grasshopper, then the mouse eats grasshopper. No, the mouse eats the bird, then the owl eats the mouse.
Yep, that's it pretty much. That's a good example, okay? So that's an example of food chains. Food chains are very important to ecosystems. Why do you think, say this stage here, okay? What happens if there's no lion? What happens? Winter, what do you think is going to happen if there's no lion in that food chain?
If there is no line in that food chain, we didn't know which one eat which one.
Yeah, okay. So what you need to understand, if there's no lion in this system, there's going to be too much deer. If there's too much deer, then they're going to eat too much grass. If there's too much grass, the grass won't grow, meaning that in future, there will be not enough grass to support the deer will die. So everyone has a role to play in this ecosystem and food chain, okay? There has to be enough grass for the deer. There can't be too much deer for the grass. How do we make sure there's not enough deer? The lion kills them, okay? If there's no lion to make poop for the dung beetle won't have anything to eat. So all of these things affect their ecosystem and their habitats and environments in some way. Okay, so here is your homework, okay? What I want you to do for your homework is I want you to choose your favorite animal and write about their environment and their habitat. So write about where they live and what happens where they live. Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it wet? Is it not wet? Is it dry? Is it sandy? All these things, I want you to tell me about its environment, and also tell me what that animal does to survive in its environment. You understand? So does anyone have any questions? If you're confused about what they do to survive, here is an example. Here's an example of a picture. It's a type of fox called a fennec fox. Fennec fox lives in desert areas, and it has very, very, very large ears and very, very white. It's white because it reflects the sun, so it doesn't get too hot, and it's got very big ears, so it can hear prey and hear predators. So these are the types of adaptations I want you to write about, okay? So choose your favorite animal, write about their environment and their habitat, write about any special adaptations that animal has in order to survive. Okay, right. Thank you all. Have a good day. Bye-bye.